Okay guys, so we're going to take a look at, now that we know a little bit about how significant figures work and try to determine how many significant figures measured values have, we're going to have to do a lot of calculations in this class. So that means we're going to start taking those measurements and we're going to have to multiply them, divide them, add them, subtract them, things like that. We'll mostly be doing multiplication and division. That rule is pretty easy. The one gives people a little bit more trouble when it's addition and subtraction. So I've got a problem, and I'm going to share with the whole problem, and we're just going to do the first part of that. It's a really good example of how to apply the different rules for mathematical operations in sig figs. Okay, so first off, you have Rory, Madeline, and Sophia. They all are tasked with, they have a liquid, and they got to take this liquid and they've got to then go measure both the mass of the liquid and the volume of the liquid. And then we're going to take all those numbers together and we're going to add them all up and try to figure out what this density of this large sample of liquid we have. It's too big to fit into any one of our measuring devices. So they split it up and everybody's working with some of it. All right, so let's take a look at the different masses we have. Unfortunately, they didn't all use the same measuring device, and that creates some problems for us interpreting sig figs. So the masses that we have, let's try that again. So the masses that we have this is all going to be in grams, are 100.0 grams, okay, 112.57 grams, and 71.286 grams. Okay, and then we're going to have to add all those masses together to see what the total mass of the sample is. If I make a mistake on this, please go ahead and let me know that I made this mistake and send that to me. So, let's see, it's going to be gram multiply 6. I don't really know what the numbers are right here, so we'll just say 6. There's 8 and a 7, so that's 15. I don't know what that number is, so we'll just say 15. And then this was a 0, it's a 2 and a 5, so that's 7, so there we got an 8. Decimal right there. And it's kind of important we line up the decimals in these numbers. Nothing to carry, there's a 3, so that's an 8, and that's a 2. So 283.856. Okay, so they didn't all use the same measurements, so sig figs start coming into play. How many of these numbers can I actually keep out of this value right here? Well, the thing is, this last person right here, they're the only ones, let me change the color here, where we actually know what we're adding to. So we can't say that's really a 6 because this column right here is messed up. Okay, so they didn't all use the same measuring device. This one right here, okay, we know that number, we know that one number. We don't know what that number is. So we can't say with confidence we know what that one is. What's the number that we can use with some confidence? Well, it's the one out here in the tens place. We feel pretty good about that 8. These numbers right here, we can just use that to round up or down. That helps us a little tiny bit. And so we'll say it's 283.9 grams. So the rules are different if it's multiplication and division versus addition and subtraction. When it's addition and subtraction, it's all about, okay, which one of these columns right here do I have some doubt as to what the number is, so enough doubt that I can't really take it. So really important when you do addition and subtraction, line up the decimal place on all your numbers and say, okay, is there any spots in here that I'm trying to add numbers to nothing, to something that I don't really know what that is because there's no sig figs there. And that's where you have to start rounding off the numbers. That's also listed in your rules on that worksheet. I'm going to try to reshare that link. It didn't work out for everybody. All right, let's go over here a little bit. And we're going to add up some milliliters. And that's going to be another issue. Okay, I'm working with two screens here, so had a little blink out there. Oh, I don't know why it did that to me. Okay, so now we're going to add up some volumes. We have 110 milliliters. Okay, so that's one of our numbers. That's what Rory got. And then Madeline got 120 milliliters. And Sophia, she used better measuring stuff. She got 78.05 milliliters. This is a good spot to really stop. So we did a lot of discussion about this stuff and see if you can add this up, so the total volume of all of our sample, and then get it to the right number of sig figs. So you might want to pause it. All right, so hopefully you added this up. Now we're back. Let's see if we can go ahead and do the math. So this would be a 5 right here. Don't really know what we're adding this to. Okay. 0, well, I don't add it to the m's, that's just a unit. So that would be a 0 right there. Got an 8. Okay. And then there's a 3 and a 7, that's 10. Carry the 1, 308.05. Well, again, it's the same thing. It's not about how many significant figures each of our measurements have. That's where the rule that we take a look at. It's like when you're doing multiplication division, you take your final answer and you've just got to round it to the number of sig figs as the least accurate measurement you had. Here it's all about your columns, all right, of space on this stuff, and say, okay, at what point am I adding stuff together and I don't really know what I'm adding it to. So I'm going to change color again. Okay, and I work this way. We have a 5 right here, but I don't know what I was adding that 5 to. Okay, you got a 0 here. I don't really know. I don't feel very good about that 0 either, because the first two measuring devices didn't measure out that far. Here's the 8 right here. This is added to some zeros. Okay, we feel pretty good about this column. We feel pretty good about the 3. The 8's a little bit problematic though, because the way they listed these numbers, okay, well, I don't know if those zeros were just, you know, numbers you put in there, because it's about 120 milliliters, and I don't know to the milliliter how much it is. So technically, I probably shouldn't use this number right here. So my number is, so this column right here, I got some problems with that, so I really should round this to 310 milliliters. So this is to try to show you where it becomes problematic if you start having students who aren't on the same page with how you should be listing numbers. So 310 milliliters would be your answer with this right here. That's what you have to use. Now this 8 might be significant. We should be using 308, but you know, they're not around. I can't ask them, so I got to assume I'm not real sure about what this column is, because you got problematic zeros that they should have handled differently. Okay, so now we've done all that. What do we do? Let's go ahead and see if we can find the density of this. Okay, let's take our two numbers. Density is mass divided by volume. So I'm going to take my 283.9 grams and divide that by, sorry that that's a little boogery right there, but 310 milliliters. So if I go ahead and use a handy dandy calculator, and please bring a calculator to class every day, we're really going to need that. And let's see what we come up with. All right, so my calculator says 283.9 divided by 310, and I got a whole lot of numbers. And again, try to get in the habit of putting your units in with what you're doing. And that would be grams per milliliter. So 0.9158065 grams per milliliter would be our density. So this gives us an opportunity to try to identify this substance. Here's the problem with this. How many sig figs does the top number have? Well, that's got 4 sig figs. This one right here, the 310, remember, we only know the 3 and the 1 for sure, so that has 2 sig figs. So what the rules are for multiplication division are different. This is my least accurate measurement, had 2 sig figs. So what I have to do is I have to say the density I only know to 2 sig figs. So that's going to be 0.92 grams per milliliter is how I have to report that value. So you got 2 sets of rules. Addition and subtractions, all about the columns and what decimal place do you know stuff to. Multiplication and division is a different situation, and that's all about that's all about how many or what's your least accurate measurement that you have, and you can't keep any more sig figs than your least accurate measured value. Okay, that's it for that. And so what you need to now do is that worksheet that I linked to you, you go ahead and start working on that, and make sure you've read this section. I got to double check, but it's a section on sig figs. I think it's 1.3. Oh, there's that wonderful vowel we've all come to grow to just love and cherish every day. All right, we'll see you guys tomorrow. Make sure that you're ready to take a little quiz on this.